Hey everyone, hope you're having a great day. I've still been having a lot of fun with the recent update. It's been a breath of fresh air and I've been enjoying using all the new updated stratagems. And today for this video, I'd like to go in depth talking about the Orbital Gatling Barrage, something I have not used before but I'm certainly am using a lot now. Personally for me, pre-patch, the Orbital Gatling was kind of locked into only serving one purpose, which was just for addressing the light and medium armored enemies. You'd expect the light armored enemies to get taken out and the medium armored ones to get a bit softened up, but beyond that, it didn't have much of a use. Because of this, anything beyond difficulty 4 made it hard to get valuable use out of it compared to the other orbital stratagem options, or any other stratagem for that matter. So what happened that made it now a lot more useful? And looking at the patch notes, they made it so that it fires more and faster, increasing the fire rate by 25% and doubling the rounds per salvo. Every round now has increased armor pen, and that gives it the viability of taking down heavies and damaging enemy structures. And they made it so that you can use it more often, reducing the cooldown by more than 10% from 80 to 70 seconds. If you were to have the 0G breach loading ship upgrade, it reduces the cooldown even further by adding an additional 10% off, taking it now from 70 to 63 seconds. So basically, to sum it up, the patch has now made the Orbital Gatling now hit faster, hit harder, and more often. The blog post alongside the patch notes provided the reasoning for these changes, and Arrowhead stated that they wanted the Orbital Gatling to be better at saturating the target area and also to be able to do more damage against heavy units. They don't expect it to outright kill heavy units, only soften them up a bit, and they were lowering the cooldown to make it a more competitive choice not amongst the other orbitals, but in comparison to the Eagle stratagems. Personally, I feel like that's great, no complaints here. I think that's all fine and dandy. So let's give the Orbital Gatling Barrage a deep dive treatment and let's look into how it fundamentally works, seeing the purpose for using it and what to expect when you call it in. Next, we'll see how it fares against the Terminids and the Automatons, reviewing the gameplay experience I've had and identifying where the Gatling Barrage shines and where it doesn't. Then I'll share some tips, tricks, and loadout options I have when I run the Orbital Gatling. And I'll wrap it all up with my final thoughts and opinions about how the Gatling Barrage is now post-patch. So looking into the ship management terminal, the Orbital Gatling is described as a barrage of high explosive rounds, fired from the destroyer's high-speed rotary autocannons. And we can see from the example video from the stratagem that it lays continuous fire on the area that is called in on. Although the video example doesn't seem to be the updated Gatling Barrage, most of the time you will be throwing this on the light and medium armored enemies, so it's still a good point of reference on how to use it. When calling in the Gatling Barrage, like your other orbitals, they will all be fired from your super destroyer. This is important because the angle in which the orbital barrage is fired can determine its overall effectiveness, and your awareness of this is the difference between the rounds hitting tall obstructions like rocks or your intended targets. Rule of thumb is that the further you are from the center of the map, the steeper the angle will be. So try your best to check the map every now and then, as well as see where your super destroyer is above you, so you have a better idea of how your orbital Gatlings will behave. The Gatling Barrage itself does not seem to have a consistent firing pattern. It seems to shoot its rounds within the spread of a 20-meter radius from the stratagem beacon, and given the explosive property of the rounds, and that the Orbital Barrage is more often than not fired from an angle, I recommend staying at least a safe 30 meters away when you call it in. The duration of the barrage is 13 seconds, and if you have the More Guns ship module upgrade, you'll get an additional salvo in your orbitals, including the Gatling Barrage, which seems to extend the duration by 3 more seconds. In terms of the damage, it's fairly strong. It's able to one-shot you with a direct hit. If you are hit by the explosive AoE of the round, you'll survive, but you'll get ragdolled. And what sucks about the ragdoll is you won't be able to quickly respond to the remaining autocannon shots. Even though the exploding shrapnel upgrade does not seem to list the Gatling Barrage, I have seen and heard that it does affect it. And what it does is it reduces the fall-off damage of the barrage's explosive rounds. So if someone can clarify for me that it does apply to it, I appreciate it. Like mentioned earlier, the 0G breach loading upgrade reduces the cooldown further to now 63 seconds. But the cooldown already starts ticking while the barrage is ongoing, meaning when it ends, you only need to wait 47 seconds. There's very little downtime for the stratagem, giving you a lot of chances to throw this around throughout the mission. That's it for the basics, and now moving on to its use cases and how does it do against the bots and the bugs. I'll start with the bugs, and just like the airburst and the gas strike orbitals, this is great for responding to a group of enemies. So I want you to think about bug breaches, bug nests, enemy patrols, and objectives, and that's where you really see this shine. On higher difficulties, you'll encounter multiple bug breaches in one engagement, and with multiple mission types that automatically trigger bug breaches, such as the new Nuke Nursery and the Conduct Geological Survey mission, you'll get a lot of uses out of the Orbital Gatling. With its increased armor penetration, and given the fact that they've now changed it so that more generic mobs instead of heavies will be spawning, it does a great job of clearing enemies at even Helldive difficulty. Granted, you can't expect it to be the go-to response for dealing with heavy units. It's more reliable when against the light and medium armored. It still can pack a punch to all those enemies, including the Hive Guards, the Brute Commanders, and the Bow Spewers. When it comes to the heavy specifically, it can kill a Stalker, but more often than not, it will run out of the AoE of the Gatling Barrage, so I personally not use it as a response to them. For Chargers, I like to say that one Barrage is technically technically enough to kill one, both the basic and the behemoth charger. However, given the spread of the barrage, it will more often than not take you at least 2 to kill them. Lastly, for Battle Titans, it will take a decent amount of barrages to kill one solely by just using the Orbital Gatling. The autocannon shots are able to pepper through the Battle Titan's carapace, leaving holes throughout and eventually stripping off the chunks of armor. If you do it enough, you'll bring it down, and once it gets through the armor, it's able to do significant damage to the soft spots. If you were to lead with something like the rocket pods to already strip off the armor, you can follow up with the Gatling barrage and even take it down in just one call-in. When it comes to enemy structures, you only need one barrage to take out a streaker nest and a spore spewer. It can destroy the terminate eggs, but they are normally attached to tall rock walls that at times can be hard for the Gatling barrage to hit, so be aware of that. It is also able to take out a bug hole if the explosive round enters the bug hole, but this isn't always guaranteed because of the angle in which the barrage is fired and the direction that the bug hole exit is facing. If both play to your favor, you'll be able to clear out the hole. If not, it might be impossible just for that situation. Overall, it is pretty good against the bugs, and given that it can help in dealing with the structures and all the enemy types, it's definitely something to consider for your next bug dive. As for the bots, it still has its uses, but personally I feel that it is a bit better against the bugs. Still, let's explore what Orbital Gatling has to offer against the automatons. Similar to the Terminids, you're going to get the most value out of this where you see the most targets, so think bot drops, enemy outposts, patrols, and objective locations. Breaking it down, the Gatling barrage isn't able to take out the dropships, so you want to throw it just as they finish deploying the bots and then start to leave, leaving all of the autocannon rounds for targets that matter. With the increased armor penetration, Devastators and Berserkers can all fall to a single Orbital Gatling. Plus, what's very helpful is that the rounds also stagger, preventing heavy Devastators from charging their own barrage of rockets back at you. For enemy heavies, Hulks like Chargers are technically able to be taken out by a single Gatling barrage, should enough rounds hit it. Generally though, you'll need at least 2 Gatling barrages, and it is able to disable an arm or both arms, as well as inflict stagger should a round hit them directly. One barrage is also enough to take out a cannon turret and a tank, but a wide firing spread makes it so that you may need 2, but you can always supplement this with something like an impact grenade to finish it off. Lastly, for Factory Striders, it takes quite a lot, but it can bring one down. It is able to take out the cannon turret on its back, but what's difficult about using this against Factory Striders is that their large and wide body is able to tank a lot of the shots that are better meant for the enemies below it. In terms of the automaton structures, the increased armor penetration gives it a lot more utility in responding to these as well. It is able to technically take out a bot fabricator, however, it needs to go right into the vent hole, and given the firing spread and the angle of the barrage, it's not always guaranteed, so don't always count on it. The barrage is able to take out the gunships in the sabotage airbase mission, mortar emplacements, and anti-air emplacements. You cannot take out gunship facilities, stratagem jammers after it has been disabled, detector towers, and although you cannot take out the command bunker itself, you can destroy the turrets on top of it. I mentioned earlier how missions that automatically trigger enemy spawns, such as the nuke nursery and to conduct geological survey, are good places to bring stratagems such as the Orbital Gatling. I also want to just quickly mention that the evacuate high value assets mission is a great mission to bring it in as well, as you'll be able to take out groups of clustered up enemies at choke points, and it seems to do the perfect job for that. I also want to say that it does a better job at this on the Terminid version of this mission than the automaton one. That wraps it up for gameplay, and now let's talk about some generic tips and tricks. One more quick note about structures, and that's just about the generic destructive potential of the Orbital Gatling. For automaton bases, the Orbital Gatling is able to clear out the outpost fences, get rid of the barbed wire, and detonate the contact mines. It is also able to destroy the fences in the area with super earth structures as well as the buildings, and this can help clear those dividers and make valuable rotations for you and your team. It is also able to take out the illegal broadcast tower, open storage containers, but cannot take out the rogue research station. Since the Orbital Gatling has a lot more uses and utility beyond basic enemy clearing, there's definitely some flexibility in terms of your loadout options. You can steer further into the mob clearing path and take something such as Eagle Napalms, but you can also focus more on the objective and heavy enemy clearing with something like the 110 rocket pods. Against the bots, I like to recommend a shield backpack generator, as the worst thing that can happen is you dropping an activated Orbital Gatling right on top of you. It's worse enough you basically get no value out of it, but you may also kill your teammates, their sentries, and you also lock out that friendly area for more than 10 seconds. So a shield backpack will help you make sure that a single rocket from a Devastator won't prove beyond fatal. Since the Orbital Barrage also does not have pinpoint accuracy, the only unit it does a pretty poor job of addressing are the gunships, so something I like to use to take those out while also taking the Gatling barrages and autocannon, as they will be helpful to bring. Against the bugs, I enjoy running the jump pack because 1, I'm able to create distance from them while they're swarming me, and I can throw the Orbital Barrage safely down on them, and 2, I can get a lot more distance in the actual throw when approaching objective or nest. In regards to weapons, I think it's helpful to bring primaries and secondaries with strong stagger and pushback to prevent enemies from getting out of the AoE of the Orbital Barrage. The Dominator, the Blitzer, and the Bushwhacker come to mind. Additionally, you can also use stun grenades to make sure enemies stay in place while the barrage is ongoing. For armor options, the only useful thing I can think of is the servo-assisted armor passive, because this lets you use the Orbital Gatling to engage from even a further distance. If you were to couple this with a jump pack, you're able to take it to a whole new level. Also, a small tip is when throwing it, be sure to complete the input code to activate the Orbital Gatling right when you are sure you're going to throw it. I cannot tell you how many times I ragdolled over nonsense with a primed and ready Orbital Gatling just for me to trip on a ledge, drop it on myself, die, and then have my corpse turn into mashed potatoes. Lastly, a final tip I have is to just use it. You do not have a lot of downtime with the Orbital Gatling, especially if you have all the ship upgrades. True, it would be great if every time you use it, it'd be on a group of really clustered up enemies, but from my experience, even if you were to use it on bots that are hovering around a radar station or bugs that are near the ICBM silo, just throw it. It works great and it's up again real soon. Overall, I'm really happy with the way the Orbital Gatling is right now. Pre-patch, it was only good for maybe just clearing out small enemies, but after these changes, it's a lot more viable in a lot more ways. Granted that the Orbital Gatling is not the best solution to every situation, it's now able to still provide value in those situations. Plus, I've been seeing a lot of stratagem variety in the higher difficulties now that these niche stratagems are more effective. It's very great to see, especially the orbitals such as the Gatling Barrage. It's really fun and breathtaking to see a bunch of Gatling Barrages at the same time, so no complaints here from me. And that's pretty much it for the video. If you like what you heard or like what you see, be sure to like and subscribe. There's still a lot more things I want to discuss about in regards to the updated stratagems, such as updating my own Rocket Sentry guide. So if you're interested in that, be sure to stay tuned. I'm also curious to see how you guys feel about the changes to the Orbital Gatling Barrage. What's your experience with it? What's your opinion? I enjoy exchanging ideas with you guys in the comments, so feel free to let me know what you guys feel. And as always, appreciate you for checking out the video, and have a nice day.